Okay, good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well today. So we are going to be starting Chapter 3, Section 3. So this is the first chapter and section that we're going to do after your last quiz. So hopefully the quiz went well for you. So what this chapter and section are discussing is the concept of slope. So you may or may not be familiar with that concept. It's um, it's a fairly easy concept to understand. However, it's easily mixed up whenever you're actually trying to calculate the slope of something. So I'm going to explain to you what slope is. So we're going to talk about finding the slope of the line, and then we're going to use rate of change, which is also another name for slope, to solve real-world word problems. And that will actually be in the next video that we watch. So first thing we need to do, the slope, which is the steepness, the blank of the change in the y coordinates to the change in the x coordinates. And the word right here is ratio. And so slope is exactly that. It's a ratio. And it's the change in y, also known as delta y. The delta looks like a triangle, right? It means change. And so delta y divided by delta x is what gives us our slope. So the change in y over the change in x gives us the slope. Now, numerically, the way that we find that change is to subtract two numbers. And what you have to understand, though, is that we will have two ordered pairs. We'll have an x1 and a y1, and then we're going to have an x2 and a y2. Now, the only difference between those two ordered pairs, other than the fact I color coded them, is that their subscripts, the ones and the twos, simply show us which ordered pair it is. So as you can see in this first one, this is the first ordered pair, so it's called x1 and y1. This is the second ordered pair, so it's called x2 and y2. And so once we establish which x we're talking about and which y we're talking about, you can plug them into the formula that we have right there, which is simply y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And that's the formula. It's a little strange, but for whatever reason in math, they refer to slope with the variable m. You would think they would use S. I have no idea why they don't. But in any equation, if you see the variable m, you need to know that that is referring to slope. And the way we find slope is using the slope formula. So let's try it. So it says find the slope given 2 points. So the first thing that I want to see you do is I want to see you go and label each one of these, x1, y1, x2, y2. It does not matter which ordered pair you say is your first ordered pair and which ordered pair is your second, doesn't matter. But you do need to be consistent. So if you use x2, then you need to use y2 right after it. And remember, the slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So now it's just a matter of substituting the values in. We're going to start with y2, which is right there. And then we're going to move to y1, which is right there and right there. So let's set that part up. So y2 is 8 minus y1, which is 6. Now on the bottom, you can see we have x2. And so x2 is this one. And last but not least, x1 is this one right there. And so we have x2, which is 4, and then x1, which is 3. So we write 4 minus 3. The next thing we're going to do is simply simplify. So we have 8 minus 6, which is 2. 4 minus 3 is 1. 2 divided by 1 is 2. So our slope is 2. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means the line will go up 2. The rise is on top, the run's on the bottom. The line will go up 2 units for every 1 unit that it goes over. Okay, so the line is actually a little steeper than 45 degrees. which we'll explain that later whenever we go to graph. So let's try another one. Uh, Ordered pairs, x1, y1, x2, y2. I'm going to write our formula. Slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now we need to substitute our values in. So the y2 is 4, and then minus y1, which is 2. x2 is negative 6, and then careful with this because there's a there's a minus in the formula. So it's going to be negative 6 minus, but then the value of x1 is negative 2. And so we have to substitute a negative 2 in. So whenever we put a negative number in, I would advise you to use parentheses like we discussed in previous lessons. So the reason why we need that is if you look right here, these two, it's a minus and negative, are going to become plus. So on top we have 4 minus 2, which is 2. On bottom we have negative 6 plus 2. So if you owe me $6, you pay me 2 back, you still owe me $4. From there, that fraction is reducible. Both of those numbers are divisible by 2. So we'll get 1 over negative 2 like that. And there's your slope. Slope is negative 1/2. And another thing to think about is if you went up and then to the right, you're going to get a positively sloped line. All right. But this particular one means we're going to go up 1 and then we're going to go to the left 2. And so when I go like that, when I get a line, it's actually going to be a line that's going down. That's a negatively sloped line. A couple more we're going to try. So once again, I'm going to label first x1, y1. Yes, I would like you to do this on your work that I gave for you today. You should label, and then you're going to write the formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we're going to substitute. So y2 is negative 2, then it's always minus. y1 is also negative 2. Now on the bottom, x2 is 0, minus, and then the x1 is negative 4 like that. Now we have some simplification to do. You can see we have a double negative right here. We have a minus and negative, so that becomes positive. We also have a minus the negative like this. Okay? And that becomes positive. So what we ultimately end up with on the top is we have negative 2 plus 2. Well, negative 2 plus 2 is 0. And then 0 plus 4 is 4. Now, these fractions can very often are mixed up. And the reason why they're mixed up is people forget when there's a 0, where the 0 is allowed to be and where it's not allowed to be. So this is a fraction. The top is what you have. The bottom is out of how many. So if you look at this, we have 0 out of 4 things. So that particular fraction is actually equal to 0. So the slope in this case is 0. Now, when the slope is 0, what that means is there is no rise. When you start at a point, you simply go to the right 4. And so what this type of slope will form is a horizontal line. It'll go straight across the screen. That's a slope of 0. Now, the last one we're going to do, once again, we're going to label our points first, x1, y1, x2, y2. And then I'm going to write my formula, m equals, and then it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I have 7 minus, and then negative 3. And then we have 6, which is x2 minus 6. Now looking at the top of the fraction, you can see we have this double negative again. So that turns into 7 plus 3, which is 10. On the bottom, we have 6 minus 6, which is 0. Now, this is a little different than the fraction above. Okay, the fraction above said you have 0 out of 4, which means you have nothing. right? If there's 4 pieces of pizza and you have 0 of them, you have nothing. This says you have 10 pieces out of nothing. That doesn't make sense. 10 out of nothing. You can't have 10 out of nothing. So this particular one is not 0. This is very important. 0 is not allowed to be on the bottom of a fraction. So if you get an answer where 0 is on the bottom, this is called undefined. And what undefined means is it's not a defined operation within our number system. We are not allowed to divide by 0. And I could go into a lot of reasons why, but it would just make it confusing. If you try it on your calculator, you'll get an error. You cannot divide by 0. It's not an allowed operation. So that's why we say it's undefined. Now, what does an undefined slope mean? Well, it means if we start at any point anywhere, the rise is 10. We would go up 10, but we would not go left or right. So we'd start here, we'd go up 10 and put another dot. We would get a line that is straight up and down or vertical. Okay, so when you have an undefined slope, that is going to give you a vertical line. When you have a 0 slope, that is going to give you a horizontal line. So that's it for today. Hopefully those 4 examples made sense. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Have a great day.